Yeah. The meeting is on record. You can continue. Yeah, the student is here.
Here, right? Okay. So you can start recording, right?
Yeah, the recording is going on.
Okay. Okay, right. So good evening. So we'll be starting grade 10 English medium science class from today onwards. This will be a free class for you to join and see whether you will need to continue the class or not. At first, I will give you a little introduction about myself. I'm Keshala Gunaratna. I'm currently an undergraduate in University of Sri Jayawardenepura. In our lesson series, we will be starting the lessons from the first lesson onwards. So you won't miss any lesson or whatever. If you have missed lessons before, prior to this, you will be able to cover the lessons that you missed so far. So we will try our best to end or complete the syllabus by the end of this year, or probably March or so, with what the education system is going on. Okay, then for today, if I'm talking about my teaching style, I will be using, normally I won't be using presentations. I will be a presentation just because it's an introductory session. Yeah. I'll just start with the first lesson onwards. Let's check what we can do up today. Let's try to complete a part that you can get an idea about how the teaching works here. Then you can check whether it is reliable with you or not. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Can you allow me to share the screen?
Yes, wait, are you not the host? Okay, let me make you host.
No, I'm currently not the host.
Okay, I made you the host.
Okay.
Now you can.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah. Yeah, fine. Okay. So as you know, the grade 10 first lesson is chemical basis of life. So we'll be trying to get a thorough idea about this lesson for today. And we will be continuing some more work from the next class onwards, from our first class. Okay. Okay. Then, now the first thing about this chemical basis of life. Now we know for a human to survive, there are many chemicals in your body that can support, which supports for the survivor. Without those chemicals, the human or animals or plants won't be a thing without those chemicals. So biology and chemistry is just a single thing, but people have differentiated it to two parts because they need to learn it easily. So we are talking about our body in this lesson, a part of the chemistry, the basic chemicals that we have in our body and which are needed for us to survive, which are necessary for us to survive. Without those, we won't be surviving. Okay. So in nature, I guess you have your school textbook with you. You have 92 in total. We talk about 92 in total. Those are in our nature, in our environment. Some are bonded with the other molecules, some are not bonded, some are present as free living ones. Like that, you have different types of elements. Okay, mainly there are 92. Now your body composed of 25, almost 25 out of those 92. That's a big portion out of that, right? So in that also you have some of these elements which are present in higher concentrations, which are more in your body. Some are present less in the amount. Amount is higher and amount is lower for some, right? Then I have orderly arranged some elements. Main 4 elements, those are present in your body according to the amount of elements or the amount of that particular element present in your body. Now, if I take this order, the first one is oxygen. Now, you know, for our survival, oxygen is very important. Why do we need oxygen? We simply know oxygen is needed for us to survive. We breathe in, we breathe. Do it every time. Now, till your birth to your death, you do it every time. So this oxygen cycle is already in your body and it is necessary for your survival. Without this oxygen, without oxygen, you cannot survive. You know that. Then okay, then we were talking about oxygen. Then oxygen is in the highest concentration of your body. Then we have carbon. Carbon is the next highest thing. You have carbon in your body after oxygen. Then hydrogen, then nitrogen. And there are other elements such as magnesium, phosphorus, sulfur, like those. You have a list of elements. Those are present other than main 4 of these: oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen. Then you have other elements. Those are present in minor constituents, like you have them in minor concentrations. You don't need it as a major element, but you need it as minor elements. Okay. Then the next thing we need to know in this is organic and inorganic. You might have already know about this. Organic compounds and inorganic compounds. Organic means you have carbon in it. Inorganic means you don't have carbon in it. Now, some compounds in our body have carbon as their constituent, or we can call this elemental composition. Now we know you have already heard about carbohydrates, proteins, and stuff that you have learned from smaller ages. You might have already know that in our lessons we are doing we are learning about carbohydrate, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids, vitamins, minerals. We know that already, right? Because we've heard them before. But here in this lesson, what we focus on is the elements present in those compounds. Those are compounds, right? We have learned what compounds are in our previous years. Compounds means there are few elements joined together in specific proportions. Then those make compounds. Like that, you have different compounds in your body. So proteins, carbohydrates, then all those are compounds in your body. Then these compounds contains some elements in different proportions. Now that is what we are learning in this lesson. For that, our main focus is on carbon. How carbon is effective. Okay. Now we know we have divided these few compounds I told you before to 2 different groups. That is depending on the presence and absence of carbon. Okay. Then organic compounds. Now organic compounds are the compounds which contain carbon as a constituent. Then we have inorganic compounds. Inorganic compounds, they don't have carbon as their constituent. They might have hydrogen, oxygen, like that. You have, let's take the best example that we can take, water. Water just have hydrogen and oxygen. It doesn't have carbon. Then it is an inorganic compound. Then if you take organic compounds, I can say the things you could include in, like carbohydrates, proteins, they include carbon. We will learn about that later. Then those are organic compounds that you have in your body. Inorganic water, then minerals, those are inorganic compounds. Okay. Then we are moving to organic compounds. Our first topic, organic compounds. So the compounds containing carbon as a constituent. So the elemental composition contain carbon. Every time you heard these different organic compounds, you should know that these organic compounds have carbon in it. Then the organic compounds which present in your body, in human body or animal body, we call these as biomolecules. Now, even plant bodies, you can see this in the living organisms body. We can call it living organisms. The organic compounds present in living organisms, we call them biomolecules. There are 4 main biomolecules that we are discussing, and one another which is not considered as a big topic, but still we are discussing about this one as well. Okay, so first you have carbohydrates. Then you have proteins, lipids, nucleic acids, and vitamins. Carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids, and vitamins. Vitamins is like a subtopic that we are talking about. We are talking about vitamins as well in this lesson. Mainly, we are focusing on carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. Okay, then we have inorganic molecules. We are discussing about water and minerals in our lesson. Water and minerals, different minerals. We have various minerals that we are discussing. So in this lesson, we will be discussing about minerals as well. Okay, then our first part, or the first biomolecule, we will be learning about the elemental composition. So in every biomolecule that we are learning, first thing we will learn is elemental composition. What elements are present in the molecules. Then we will be discussing about the structure of that particular compound or the molecule. Then we will be discussing the functions that we have in our body, like what do these molecules do? What do these compounds do to our body? We are learning that one as well. Then we have tests to identify whether they are really present in our body. Now, science is based on every time you have experiments. Even at school, you do experiments to confirm or prove something. Then that is what here we do. At the end of each section, you will be discussing or you will be learning about tests that you can perform to prove the presence of these particular compounds in this human body or animal body. Okay, then our first one, we are talking about carbohydrates. Now, elemental composition. Now, carbohydrate, I told you that it is a biomolecule. Biomolecule, now go back to the first part. Biomolecules means they are organic compounds. Organic compounds means what? Carbohydrates should contain carbon as an element in the compound, in the molecule. Okay. Then mainly we have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen as elements in carbohydrates. Now here there is a point that you should remember. Hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen and oxygen is bind in a ratio of 2:1. What does that mean? 2:1 ratio. I'll just note it down. 2:1 ratio. Okay. 2:1 ratio. That is the ratio of hydrogen to oxygen. Now that means, now you know a molecule. A molecule can be made up of several elements in particular proportions, I told you. Then here, hydrogen. If you have 2 hydrogens, you have only 1 oxygen. That is what it means. 2:1 ratio means you have 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. If you have 4 hydrogens, you have 2 oxygens. You have 6 hydrogens, then 3 oxygens, like that. 2:1 ratio. Sometimes there could be 12 hydrogens. Then oxygens, it must be 6, like that. It is in 2:1 ratio. Okay. Right. Then that is an important point in carbohydrates. This is where you can only you can find this 2:1 ratio in is present hydrogen to oxygen. Okay. Then this is the most abundant organic compound. Now on Earth, this is the most abundant one you can see. Now you know carbohydrates means that is normally starch. We say in Sinhala, if you say apikan piti, then that is it. Carbohydrates. We have learned about it. So we generally call, ever since we were small, carbohydrates are from rice, then yam, like that, those food items. Then if you take the Earth, much of the proportion or the composition of the Earth, the abundance is highest for carbohydrates, not for proteins, nucleic acids also. It's mainly for carbohydrates. So that means carbohydrates are present abundantly in the Earth. Then that is the most abundant one. Then now I told you hydrogen to oxygen ratio is 2:1. Now we have learned about these chemical notations, right? You know formulas, how you write formulas. Now there is a formula for carbon. CX H2O. Now H2O means what? A water molecule, right? H2O. You have bracket here. Outside you have Y. Now this X and Y could be any number. Now X is related to Y, but X and Y could be any number you can put. Now if you put C, instead of X, you can put 6. H2O stays the same. Then Y outside, let's make it 2. Like that, you can differentiate, or you can use any notation here according to the carbohydrates rules. Then CXH2OY. Now this is a common formula for all the carbohydrates. We are talking about 3 different types of carbohydrates in our lesson. So for all of those, we can commonly use this molecular formula. Okay. Then we have already heard about glucose. Now, glucose is a carbohydrate. You will be puzzled to listen to that. How does glucose become a carbohydrate? But clearly, every food that you take, almost every food that you take, will turn it into glucose at the end of the day, after digestion. Okay. Then, glucose is a carbohydrate, a type of carbohydrate. So we can commonly call the carbohydrates, a part of the carbohydrates, we can call them as simple sugars. We are talking about the simple sugars there. Okay. Everything now in the world, you know about building blocks, right? When you were a kid, you might have played with building blocks. Then those building blocks, you can assimilate them and form a big structure like that. These are also the same. We can assimilate smaller units to make a complete different structure, a large structure out of these smaller units. And we are learning about these smaller units now. Carbohydrates are made, carbohydrate is not just a simple molecule. You don't have carbon 1, hydrogen 2, and oxygen 1. You don't have like that. It is a very large structure. Now, if you take carbohydrates, In rice, what carbohydrate you have? You have starch in rice. Then that starch is a big molecule. Okay. Then that big molecule is made up of a combination of smaller molecules, smaller units. Those smaller units, we can call them as monosaccharides. Monosaccharides. Now, mainly, there are three: monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. So the smallest unit that we are talking about is monosaccharides. It is the structural unit of carbohydrates. Structural means structurally, if you take the structure of a compound, how the elements are present, if you take that big structure, if you have the same repeating unit, you have a unit which is repeating. Those repeating units, if I go to the next page, go to the next page. Okay. This one. In this page, now this is the complex one, I'll explain. Then you have, if you can see this one. Here. This spotting one, the one I'm showing, this part. It is a large one, right? Now, if someone asks you to draw it, it will going to be a very different or very difficult task for you to draw this. You can't draw this alone now. Now, if you carefully observe this, you can see the same structure is present, right? Yeah, the same one. Same simple unit is present over and over again. Then this simple unit, we call this unit as a structural unit. Now it is repeating, right? Now, if you take all of this, same type of unit is repeating. It looks same, but there are few differences. But it looks same. It is the same molecule. Then this repeating molecule or repeating unit, we call it as the structural unit of the particular molecule or particular compound. Then, like that, these monosaccharides are the structural units of carbohydrates. Now, in our body, you don't have only single unit. You have a very large number of carbohydrates present in your body. Then that body contains a lot of amount of carbohydrates, or that means you have a lot of amount of monosaccharides present in it, right? You mean structural units present in it, making up the larger carbohydrate. Okay. Okay. Then I'll go through. In these monosaccharides, we are talking about mainly three monosaccharides: glucose, fructose, and galactose. Those are three new words for you. Glucose we know already, but fructose and galactose we have to learn further. Then these monosaccharides, now we are mainly focusing on monosaccharides. Now they are crystal shaped. Now if you take a glucose one, you take a glucose packet and see, you have crystals, little crystals, very little crystals. Then they are crystal shaped. And they are water soluble. Now, if you take a water bottle and put some glucose in it, it is soluble, right? We can dissolve it in water. Then these monosaccharides are water soluble. And also then we call these ones as simple sugars. Now, if you taste glucose, it is sweet. And that is very, that shows a sweet taste in it. Then we call these simple sugars. Then we have to discuss separately about this glucose, fructose, and galactose. If you take the glucose molecule, we are firstly discussing about glucose. Now, what are the food or locations that this glucose could be seen? You can see glucose in ripened fruits. Then bee honey. Now, very sweet things we can see. We can experience the presence of glucose in very sweet things. Then glucose, like if you take those glucose, this manufactured glucose, it gives that sweet taste. They contain glucose. Then these glucose are produced by this famous phenomenon. You have learned about photosynthesis so far. What is this photosynthesis? Now I'm deviating a bit from this topic, this particular topic, because I want to explain you how monosaccharides are formed. Now in the nature, how these monosaccharides are formed by the process called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process by which the plants, green plants, now not every plant can do this, green plants do produce their food by on their own. That is the method or the process that these monosaccharides are formed. You have written this experiment, or you have written this particular reaction in smaller classes. You have some water, then you have what, carbon dioxide. It gives off glucose and oxygen. We have learned that the oxygen produced from the process photosynthesis is what we breathe. Now in our second lesson, we will learn about more. Okay. Then photosynthesis is the process which creates or which form glucose. Okay. Then the plants are the pioneers in producing glucose. Now humans cannot produce because we don't photosynthesize. We don't produce food on our own. But plants, green plants, they are producing food in their own. Then they are the ones which can produce glucose. Then next thing we are learning about is, now we have to learn something about hydrolysis. Now this is a big topic. We will discuss it later. Just remember that hydrolysis of starch, that means rice, yam, corn, those contain starch. Then the hydrolysis process of this starch produce glucose. Hydrolysis of starchy food can produce glucose. That also you have to just remember. We will talk about hydrolysis when we are going to disaccharides and polysaccharides. It is like hydrolysis means, lysis means breaking apart. Hydro means using a water molecule. Hydro is water, lysis breaking apart. You break apart a compound or a molecule by using water. That is certainly it. Now these reactions doesn't happen physically, like you can't put some water and do that. You have to, that happens chemically inside. Okay. Okay. Then we were talking about glucose. Then that is the product after hydrolysis of starchy food. And also now glucose production is happening by photosynthesis. This glucose can give us energy. We will learn about it as well. This glucose. Now, why do we eat food? For us to get energy. Energy is taken by this food that we are taking. This food that we are taking, they contain several different compounds like this. Glucose, and you have different molecules that we will discuss further in the next part of the lesson. Then particularly in our, especially in Asian diet, we take a lot of rice, starchy food, right? We take a lot of carbohydrates. Comparatively, we take a lot of carbohydrates daily. Then these carbohydrates, at the end of the day, they digest into glucose. That means they digest into glucose and we get energy. How do we do that? This one we call it as cellular respiration. In the cell, now we do respirate from inspiration and expiration. That's a kind of respiration that we do. But we have another type of respiration that is happening inside our cell. Cells, human cells, plant cells, we have. Now, as I said, building blocks can make big structures. Just like that, we are a structure made up of small units. Now, cell is the structural and functional unit of our body. That means we are made up of cells, right? Then those cells, they can respirate to obtain energy from the food we are taking. And that process we call it as cellular respiration. Then glucose is being used, or it is being used to produce or make energy from these particular elements, from these particular compounds, right? Then that is why now, if you take athletes, what do they do? Do they eat, like all fancy food before they run? They have glucose every time, right? Glucose packets, they have glucose packets every time. That is because they need to take energy efficiently and quickly, right? Now they can't eat a huge bowl of rice and run because it takes time to digest. And every grain of rice is being digested to glucose. So that is better if we directly take glucose instead of take a whole meal of rice, whole bowl of rice. Then glucose, that's why they take glucose. They need to get energy or produce energy quickly, and they need to do this quickly. Okay, right. Then that is another process that glucose is important. Glucose is used to produce the energy efficient. Okay, all right. Then that is mainly about glucose molecule. Okay, then that is just a single part of monosaccharides, and we have fructose, galactose, disaccharides, polysaccharides, and all. Okay, all right. Then that is particularly, I thought of completing up to polysaccharides, but I think this is better this way because I need to explain how my strategy works and how I'm going to teach. Okay, all right. Then that is it for today. In our lesson, so I will be giving you an introduction of how I'm teaching you from the next month onwards. If you are joining our class, I will first be teaching you like this. I will be explaining the lessons, and I will be teaching you what the strategy and what the science behind this and what this particular situation or process means. And I will simply explain. I understand. I bet that you have got what you learned today, and I will be sharing some, because we have to cover our syllabus pretty quickly. I will be sharing some of the tutorials that I've made. I have my tutorials that are prepared from earlier for each and every lesson. So I will be uploading them via the institute. So we can directly write answers there. You can take printouts and have the tute ready with you. Once we are teaching, once we are doing the lesson, you can write the answers to the questions that I have given. So in my teaching style, what I do is I teach you, and I won't be giving you big notes because all you and me know that reading notes is not a very nice thing that you always love to do. I think that's much better if we can learn how to answer questions, right? So that is the most important thing in any learning, in every type of learning. What you can do is, what you have to know is to answer to the questions that will be asked. So even in our life, that is it, if you have given a question, you have to find the answer yourself. So I will be giving you tutorials. Those tutorials mainly compose of questions. I don't particularly include big notes. I will just give a summarized note. Within that, you can go through. Then along with that, I will give you some questions, all the possible questions that you can get to your exam. Okay, and we will be focusing mainly on our ordinary level examination, as you know already. So still the government hasn't informed much about your ordinary level examination. When will it happen? So we will try our best to complete the syllabus by the next year, at least by February, along with the grade 11 class. And mainly my teaching style includes giving questions and answers. Then we can go on quickly, as well as you will understand what I'm teaching and you will understand how to write the answers. Okay. All right. Then for today, I'll end the session. It's 8. We can end this session now. Okay, then we have one student. Can you unmute? Let's have a talk for a while because you were there, no? Okay, where are you from? Okay,
I'm from Colombo.
Colombo. You're from Colombo. All right, all right. So what school are you from?
Mukarrama International School.
Ah, right. So you have done the lessons. So what is the progress in your school?
We are going through grade 11.
Grade 11. Ah, right. So the grade 10 work is done.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So what about the today's session? What do you understand?
Good. I understand. I got understood.
You too. Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I am happy about that. Okay. Then let's finish the session a bit earlier for today.
Okay.
I will share the questions and tutorials from next week onwards because this is just a recording as well. That's why I did like this. We will be answering questions as well. Okay.
Thank
Or-
you.
Okay. You're welcome. You can leave.
Yeah.